Hey guys, so today is going to be Battle of the Mailboxes. I've had both these optics for a little while now, and I think there's a lot of good things about both of them. And I think it's about time we do a comparison. I have dedicated reviews on each of these, but in this video we'll kind of sum up the pros and cons of each and which one I may think is better than the other. So starting off, we do have the tried and true Aimpoint Acro P2. This thing has been around since 2021, and it's definitely an optic a lot of people either love or hate. And then over here, we have the much newer Romeo X Siglock Pro. So this is something that Sig Sauer came out with very recently, and they are kind of putting it on almost all their new guns. I think their whole plan is to kind of have that as their new normal. And I think you're going to see a lot of guns come out in the Siglock Pro because in their eyes, and I agree with some of it, it has a superior lockup in the sense that it direct mounts up top and then screws in from the bottom, and also has like a little tab underneath to kind of keep it in place and make it a little bit more secure. So if you guys have ever seen videos, or maybe it's happened to you, when optic has suddenly come off of a firearm while using it, that is supposed to be, and I'm going to say supposed to be, a feature to kind of prevent that. Although there have been videos out there that have shown that exact thing happening with that exact optic. So can't say it's flawless just yet. Maybe might need some revisions, but other than that, we got two really good optics. They're both closed dot emitters, and they're roughly the same price. So full disclosure, I did purchase each one of these. When I purchased these firearms, they did come with the firearms. So neither one of these were sent out to me. So you are getting my honest, raw feedback on both of them. I'm definitely gonna let you know there's definitely pros and cons to each. So I will break this down to as many different categories as I can possibly think of. And we're gonna basically cover everything I think you'd want to know if you're in the market for either one of these. So starting off, we'll talk about the material, because that is one thing they do have in common. They are both 70-75 aluminum, and it gets a little different when you talk about weight. Obviously, you will see the size, and you would guess, yes, the Acro is bigger and heavier. This weighs 2.2 ounces, where the Romeo X weighs 1.46 ounces. Now, where they differ in length the most, in dimensions, is going to be the overall height and width. The length of both of these is 1.9 inches, and the height of the Acro is 1.2 inches versus this being 0.96, so slightly shorter on the Romeo X. Now, the width of this is going to bring the Acro at 1.3 inches and then 1.24 inches for the Romeo X. So same height. The Romeo X is slightly shorter, slightly more narrow. Now, why that is worth noting is, believe it or not, the Romeo X actually has a bigger viewable window. And I think that's one of the things people dislike about the Acro. While it's tried and true and robust, you end up getting a lot more of a total package for a smaller viewable window. So the viewable window on the Acro is 15 millimeters by 15 millimeters. But when we look at the Romeo X, it is actually larger. It's 24 millimeters wide by 18 millimeters tall. Now, that's not anything too crazy. We're not obviously comparing like an SRO to one of these. They're both smaller windows, but as we get more into it, you're going to realize why having, I'll say in my opinion, a larger window and a smaller housing kind of comes in handy for certain things. But we will get to that later in the video. Now, while we're talking about the window, obviously we got to talk about the glass. I will say the glass clarity on both is very good. I think the Acro might slightly edge it out, and that does have very clear glass. You will notice with the Sig, there is a bluish tint to it. I know for some people that is something that might drive you crazy, so it's worth noting that when you get this optic, you're going to have that. So if that's something you really, really dislike, I can see you not wanting to deal with that optic. For me, honestly, the tint doesn't bother me one way or another. And I can't say when I'm shooting comparing to a clear glass optic that it makes anything better or worse for me. Now, I can't touch to whether or not that makes a different application when using night vision, or if there's certain settings that you may use this in where that may be a factor. For me personally, I've not come to an issue with either one, so I can't say the tint is a deal breaker for me, but I can see for some it may. Now, we're going to talk about some things that really, really kind of set these two apart. And first, we're going to talk about the tools, because then we're going to talk about the adjustments. So this big tool right here, which actually even shows you like the way to do the adjustments, this comes with the Acro. Nice and big, hard to lose. I really like that. Comes in handy. And I will say, making the adjustments on here, very tactile, very audible. I would say what I expect from an optic, this does perfectly. Like if I'm making an adjustment when I'm zeroing, I want to feel it, I want to hear it. I don't want to have to guess. Now this itty bitty little guy right here, this is the tool to make the adjustments on here. And it's actually just that super, super tiny flathead, which to me is a little annoying. It's definitely easy to lose. Not that I've lost it, but I could see that being lost by many. And it's a very, very, very small spot you got there to make the adjustments. Now, they also are tactile and audible, but not nearly to the point where the aim point is. The aim point does it exceptionally well. I will say, wearing Ear Pro, I don't hear it. And if I'm not paying attention, I barely feel it on the Siglock Pro, which to me is annoying. I had Sig optics in the past that didn't have any sort of feeling, and you were basically guessing if you're making those adjustments, and I really hated that. This is a little bit better than that, but I would not say on the level of the aim point. The aim point definitely does it much, much better. As far as buttons to adjust the brightness, I would say they're about even. Each one has a nice positive click on both up and down, and you would hear it if you're not wearing Ear Pro. So I do like that. Again, whenever I'm changing something on my optics, I want to hear that, and I want to know for sure. I don't like guessing. I've had some of the older SIGs where there was a button like you had to put your finger way in there and you kind of guessed were you hitting it. You didn't know if it was changing the brightness. That kind of stunk. This thing definitely improved upon that. So I do like it. And I will say neither one is really better or worse than the other one when it comes to that. Now, as far as brightness settings, and I apologize, do you guys see me looking down? I got a lot of notes for this video. So the Acro here, you have 10 brightness settings, 6 are for daylight, 4 are for night vision. And the Romeo X has 15 brightness settings, 12 for daylight, 3 for night vision. Now, I can't touch on night vision. Unfortunately, I do not have that yet, so I can't comment whether or not these work great with nods. But for me, I've never had any issue as far as needing it to get brighter or dimmer. I've had a lot of luck in shooting conditions where I could find the perfect setting for me, and it's worked out pretty well. Now, one thing I think that makes these optics pretty good is having the battery door accessible from the side. I love not having to take an optic off to change a battery, and having these larger mailbox style optics definitely has that option on here. So I like that a lot. They both have it on opposite sides actually, but it is nice that you don't have to worry about taking the optic off and re-zeroing either one of these. Now, speaking of battery, the Romeo X uses a CR1632, while the Acro uses a CR2032. And what is also notable is the battery life of the Acro is 50,000 hours, and the Romeo X is only 20,000 hours. Now, that might sound pretty drastic, but here's the big difference. The Acro is always on. It does not have shake to wake. So whatever you left it on, it stays on all the time. Now, 50,000 hours is a good amount of time, so you don't need to worry about it dying too soon. But compared to the Romeo X, this will turn off after it's sitting idle, and you have 20,000 hours of actual using the Optic when it's moving. So depending on if you're carrying, might prolong or shorten that life depending on how often you have it with you or moving. But I think that's definitely something worth noting. Personally, I prefer something with shake to wake, but it's not a deal breaker for me having something that's always on. What I would not like is something that kind of like an EOTech where you have to turn it on when you use it. It's kind of annoying, something like that. So I can't say either one of these is a deal breaker for me, but I do think that is something worth noting. Now, the one thing that really separates these guys is the reticle. So the Acro being, an older red dot now. I mean, 5 years now? It's still hanging in there. It's still cool. Optic is a good route, but it's getting old. This one here only has a 3.5 MOA single dot. Whereas this particular Romeo X, and there are 3 different models, actually 6. You can either get red or green, and then you have 3 different options for the reticle itself. This one here is the circle dot. So this has a 2 MOA dot and a 32 MOA ring around that. You also could get this in a single 6 MOA dot or a single 3 MOA dot. What I like about the circle dot option is you can change this. You can do just the 2 MOA dot, you can do just the ring, or you can do both. So that to me is something I really like, because there's definitely been times where I've changed it around and preferred one over the other depending on what type of shooting I'm doing that day. So that I think really kind of shows you, we started with the OG here, and now we have one of the newer optics out there that I think we're going to see a whole lot more of. And I think you can start to see where this is kind of separating itself from the past. Not that there's anything wrong with the aim point. Don't get me wrong. I think this is a great optic. I think it's a little big. And if you guys have not seen my other video, the one issue I have with the sides of this optic is that it sits so far back and so tall that I could not fit it in my Condition 1 case that I've been using for the past 8-9 months now. So that's where size can kind of hinder on an optic. Another thing worth noting is, because of the amount of material you have on this actual housing, it makes that glass, that viewable glass, seem even smaller. Because you have the actual glass, then you have the surrounding housing, and then you have another layer of housing on the outside of that as well. Versus this is just much more streamlined. It's nice and tight, keeps it compact, and you end up with a bigger window. So if you guys were to ask me which optic I would go with, honestly, I like both of them. I definitely think there's a time and place for the Acro. I think there's certain guns this looks incredible with. I think there's certain guns this looks horrible on. I don't think there's anything wrong with this optic. I think in today's market with all the other options, buying it at full price might be a little high in my opinion, but you do get what you pay for. So there's that. As far as the Romeo X, coming from someone who's owned multiple other SIG optics, I will say they've definitely come a long way. I think this is the best optic they have out right now for pistol. I'd love to see future versions of this that refine it even that much more. But I really think we're going to see a lot more of these. I think they are committed to that SIG-Lock Pro footprint, and it's something that not only is supposed to be more secure, but also aesthetically looks a little better not having your screws up top to mount it. And that's just a personal opinion. Obviously doesn't make or break the optic, but I like it better. And not that you see the screws up top on this, but more traditional red dots, especially like the regular Romeo X or like some of the hollow suns. You just see the screws there, which comes in handy. You can mark your witness marks to see if they're moving, but it's a cleaner look, I think, with this. So that's everything I got for you guys. If there's anything I missed on here, please let me know. Ask it in the comments below. I'll get right back to you. I also do have 2 dedicated videos, one each for these optics. So if there's something I may have missed in this video, I'm sure it's in those videos. And last but not least, because you guys do see firearms and we do get some strange comments here and there, I will show you guys. These are safe, these are clear. So I always like to, touch on the safety aspect because we get some weird comments. You will see some B-roll throughout this video, and yes, all that was shot safely at a range. So no need for any strange questions or comments about the safety aspect of our videos. And if you guys have an optic that you would like me to do a future review on, just drop it in the comments below. I'm always looking for a new brand to try out, and I appreciate all your feedback. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.